A good vach to all of you. In the parsha, one of the two parashas that we read yesterday, we've faced with a dilemma. Our Torah is Torah's Chaim. It's a Torah which has to be translated into life. For that to be the case, we have to know exactly what each commandment requires of us, particularly when commandments are unconnected to a particular action. So then we desperately require quantification to know what, when we have to do it, how we have to do it. The first mitzvah in Parshas Kedoshim is Kedoshim Tihiyu. Now, if I were to come to you and say to you, you have to be holy, you would all agree, but you would then ask, how exactly do we achieve this? How do we become holy? But that's exactly what the Torah tells us. Kedoshim Tihiyu. What is the mechanism? One could put the question in a slightly deeper way. The modes that we have available to us of growth are twofold: mitzvahs and to compare ourselves, to imitate HaKadosh Baruch Hu, li'idamo islekeil. Now, if we were to be asked what holiness is, we would say that holiness is presumably the result of doing mitzvahs and keeping Torah properly. If so, the question is, how can it be a mitzvah? It's the result of doing all the other mitzvahs. From the Torah, it appears to be an independent mitzvah. How do we observe it? So this is a question which occupied Chazal. And there are two principal views based on different Maimrei Chazal. Rashi says that Kedusha is a product of precious, of separation, of distance. How does one achieve Kedoshim Tihiyu? By distancing myself from that which is wrong. Holiness is the distance I place between myself and wrongdoing. If we were to see a woman playing with a large family beside a cliff, and we go up to the woman, we tell her that 50 feet away there is a very large cliff, and it's not a good place to play with children. She then says to the children, you hear what the man says, there's a cliff there. Be careful not to fall over. What would we say about this woman? We would say that she's reckless, and that if anything happens, it's not an accident, it's negligence. So brings Rashi, the Maimar Chazal, Kedoshim Tihiyu means that a person who is genuinely concerned about transgressing the Torah will put a distance between him and the forbidden object. And that distance is the precious, and that is holiness. Holiness is the effort we place into avoiding doing any aveiros. And if we skirt by the side of it, if we go up to the very edge, this is a sign that we are not really concerned. This is what Rashi says. Havi perushim minu arayos minu aveiro. The Ramban sees this as being limited, too limited. We cannot see Kedusha as being something which is only relevant to negative mitzvahs, avoiding the negative. It has to be broader than that. And the Ramban, bringing another chazal, says that in fact, Kedoshim Tihiyu is the solution to one of the greatest, if not the greatest, existential dilemma that we have. For the most part, we regard action as being an end in itself. If, for example, I study the highway code and I know it cold, so then I fulfill what it says, and by so doing, this is the culmination of the learning. I behave as a responsible driver, and this is the proof that I've studied the highway code properly. Says Nachmanides, with Judaism that is not the case. Action is not an end in itself. The real end is the result which is produced by the action. And that requires further effort. Why is this the case? Because the Torah, even if observed fully, does not guarantee our spiritual superiority. Says Ramban, it is possible to observe the Torah and still be a Rasha. If, for example, we saw a chronic drunk and we were to say to him, this is incompatible with the way a Jew should behave, he would be justified in saying to us, explain that to me. What am I doing wrong? He might tell us, I get up in the morning for the first minyan. I daven, and then I spend my day drinking, but I am scrupulous in coming in the evening to both Mincha and Ma'ariv. In fact, I tell the bartender that half an hour before the time of Mincha, he should inform me that I should be able to sober up. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. I was once in an Ask the Rabbi session with high school kids many years ago. And the same question always comes up. Can I watch television on Shabbos? So I tried to say that watching television is incompatible with the spirit of Shabbos. And the question comes, Rabbi, tell me where it says in the Torah one may not watch television on Shabbos. So I have to honestly say that there is no such statement in the Torah. It's wholly incompatible with what Torah is about, but it's no statement in it. On one occasion, someone who was slightly better learned than average shouted out from the back that if you watch television on Shabbos, you should have to put a blech, a cover, over the channel selector. We know that whenever there is an action which is ongoing, which is allowed on Shabbos, we have to protect ourselves against inadvertently changing the settings, adjusting. I told this story to Moshe Feinstein, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha, and he found it very funny, and he told me that if the Ramban had been available in our days and writing his Sefer, he would have used this example. The term that we use for those who observe the Torah but ignore its essential message is novel birshus haTorah. The person is an evil person as it were, with the permission of the Torah. The question the person is asking himself is, show me what I'm doing wrong. I was once in someone's house for Shabbos, and I asked the father of the house where he davens. So he said, in the evening I daven in this shul, tomorrow morning in that shul, and for mincha a third shul. I asked him why he does so, and without any shame, he said to me, well, I go to this place in the evening because the rabbi speaks the next morning. I go to Shacharis in this place because the rabbi spoke last night. In other words, there's a way of not transgressing the Torah, but avoiding its real message. And this is called Novel Birshus HaTorah. Kedoshim Tihiyu means to involve yourself in the Torah in such a way as to produce the results that the Torah wants of you. And this is what we call Kedusha. Kedusha is seeing the observance of Torah as a means rather than an end. I have to say to myself, what does this mitzvah require of me? What does this mitzvah supposed to result in? What is the midah that is supposed to be controlled by this mitzvah? Only if I want the end product of Torah can I truly become Kodesh. The famous statement, which is one that the Ramban uses from our rabbis, is Kadesh Atzmacha B'mutar Lecha. You have to find Kedusha in that which is permitted to you. If we realize that certain mitzvahs are dangerous to us, we have to avoid them. We have to build the kind of life which does not transgress mitzvahs. However, that's not enough. Kadesh Atzmacha B'mutar Lecha means asking yourself, what is it that you are supposed to be? Not what are you supposed to do, but who are you supposed to be as a result of Torah observance? This is Kedusha. Kedusha is asking myself, how can I become the person that the Torah wants me to become? Now, all of this has one more element to it, and that is the fact that in general, the reward for mitzvahs is not uniform. In fact, the Ramban in another place says that a Kadosh Baruch Hu rewards people for mitzvahs by giving them what it is that they want. On the other hand, they cannot get what they did not want. For example, I give tzedakah because the institution has agreed that in return for a certain amount of money, they will put a sign, a lighted sign, above the building, which says, Refson is a tzaddik. The sign goes up, says the Ramban. With the sign comes the payment in full of sachar. Don't expect anything in the next world. You didn't want it. And so he says in everything. There are people who read Dante's Inferno and they don't like hot climates anyway. So they decide that it's worth keeping the Torah to avoid the punishment of not keeping it. This is known in philosophy as Pascal's wager. It's worth keeping it. You want to keep out of trouble, so you keep it. Usually, like a moderate climate, Gehenna will probably not be for you. Whatever you want is what you get. So, in this case, you would avoid Gehenna. But there's no point in thinking about Gan Eden. You wouldn't even understand it. You have no interest in it. That's not what you want. So being the right kind of person through mitzvahs is also the way in which we direct ourselves in terms of what we want for it. The ideal response says Ramban, is those people who say, I don't want anything. It's a joy for me to do a mitzvah. I can't believe how fortunate I am to be one of those minute proportion, 0.02 of the world population, who are able to relate to God through mitzvahs. So I say every morning in davening with great kavanah, we thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ma chelkeinu, ma goyraleinu, ashreinu she'anachnu mashkimim. We're just so delighted to be able to wake up in the morning and be those who can have a life of spirituality as a result of your mitzvahs. That is its own reward, and I ask for nothing more. May all of us aspire to a life of Kedusha, and may all of us achieve it as well. Have a great week. Kol Tov.